Hey everyone, it's Susan Pierce Thompson, and I would say welcome to the weekly vlog, except it's not. It's actually the first ever vlog re-record. So I've never had to do this before, but last week after the weekly vlog came out, I pulled it down. And there's been no vlog up representing last Wednesday all this time. It's now early in the following week. And so this is a vlog re-record. So I'm recording a do-over, a do-over. And I'm going to tell you why, and then I'm going to do it over. And I guess I just want to preface by saying that it's my 14-year anniversary of starting, I don't want to say Bright Line Eating, because it wasn't Bright Line Eating then. Bright Line Eating's only been around for 2.5 years, but it's the 14-year anniversary of me eating this way. And, weaving all these tools and habits and disciplines into my life. I started, of course, in a 12-step program for food addiction 14 years ago. That anniversary actually was yesterday. If you've heard me talk about May 23rd as that anniversary date, I'm actually claiming May 21st. May 21st was the first day, that was a Wednesday night in 2003. That was the first day that I went to a meeting. And I got myself a sponsor, and I got the food plan, and I wrote down my food that night, and then the next day I started off eating only and exactly that. The reason that I used to count May 23rd as my day of starting was that May 21st, after I went to the meeting, I got home and finished off something that was in the freezer. And I finished eating it like just after midnight. And when I talked to my sponsor the next morning, she's like, oh, if that was after midnight, today can't be your first day of abstinence. And so my first day of abstinence was the following day officially, which was May 23rd. But now sort of with the heart of Bright Line Eating, I look back on that and I say, that's pretty silly. Like, I started on May 21st, the day that I went to that meeting. I got a food plan, I got a sponsor, I wrote down my food the night before, and that Wednesday night at that meeting was the day that I started. So May 21st, 2003 is my anniversary date, which is 14 years ago. And I think it's kind of apropos that as I'm telling you this, I'm having to record the first ever vlog re-record. And the reason I think that's apropos is that the Bright Line Eating journey is characterized by ever deepening levels of squaring your shoulders to what's real and owning your own mistakes and allowing for imperfection. Even if you're not breaking your bright lines, the journey is not perfect. And especially if you're not breaking your bright lines, the journey is imperfect. And it's not often what we wish it were. And there's something in Bright Line Eating about how we take that imperfection that we so wish didn't exist, and we fold it into this incredible mosaic of it making our journeys so rich and so fulfilling and so more than perfect, like beautiful in their imperfection. Like, we just become rock stars of unstoppability by facing what feels flawed and awful. And I have a feeling that this is going to be a great vlog, even though it's coming out on a Monday, which never happens. And, it should have been out last Wednesday, and I shouldn't have made all the mistakes that I made in the vlog last week, and shouldn't have. Don't shit all over yourself, someone used to tell me. So anyway, what was wrong in the vlog last week? Well, I got vlog topic suggestions, like I do, from my director of content creation, and my head of content creation sent me a bunch of options, and I picked this one. And it was 2 sentences long, and it was intense. It was about self-loathing and loathing body image, and if I can't afford to get plastic surgery, how do I accept myself when I get down to goal weight? And it was just 2 sentences, and I recorded kind of I don't know if it was scathing, but it was a pretty confronting, hey, plastic surgery isn't gonna make you feel different about yourself. If you have a loathing body image now, it's not gonna change. I used her first and last name, and in the comment section down below, she told me what time it was. And she said, like, you blew it. Like, first of all, why did you lift those 2 sentences out of everything I sent you? I sent you this long thing, and she copied it in there. I sent you this long thing, and you selected these 2 sentences to focus on. What about all my backstory? What about all the context? And how dare you use my first and last name? Like, I didn't give you permission to do that. And I was like, whoa. So I got on the phone with my team, and we unpacked what had happened. So those 2 sentences were all I ever saw. That's what I thought was the full vlog submission. And the first and last name being present there, I thought meant that whoever sent it in had given permission for me to use their first and last name. And so I had all kinds of assumptions, and my team had all kinds of assumptions about the way we were handling vlog topic submissions that turned out to be totally unfounded, and there was lots of miscommunication going on. So my team and I unpacked it, and basically it was a cross-wire thing between our customer support division here at Brightline Eating. They field all of the stuff that comes in that people send in through the support center, and they divvy it out to where it needs to go. And the head of content creation, who manages me essentially with all the emails we send out and all the vlogs and all that, she's the one who is sort of the project manager of all that and makes sure that all the content goes out right, and that I am recording what I need to record on time and well and all that. And those 2 divisions had a miscommunication where customer support thought they were being helpful by creating a Google Sheet that only had the essence of the topic for each vlog submission, and that we would know on our end that if we wanted to use one of those vlog topics, to go use the reference number that they'd put in the corner and source the whole text of what had been sent in from our system. And the head of content creation didn't know that that's the way it was set up, and thought that, like I thought that that was the whole complete verbiage of what had been sent in. And nobody, except back in the day when I was the one doing all this by hand, nobody was thinking of like, hey, have we gotten permission to use this first and last name? I used to be very, very careful about that when I was personally receiving all the emails, and like I would call people often and say, hey, I'm going to use your vlog topic this week. Can I use your name? You know, blah, blah, blah. And I guess I just assumed that my team was passing along to me a first and last name only if it meant that I could use it. So with all that miscommunication in the mix, I recorded this vlog, which I thought was great, and totally blew it. Like, threw this poor woman under the bus with, like, you know, sort of telling her the time of day with my suggestions about like how she should think about her plastic surgery and self-esteem and all that. That was feedback that was completely not what I would have given her at all if I'd have read her whole thing, if I'd have had access to her whole thing. And I used her first and last name. So I called her yesterday. I mean, first I took down the vlog as soon as I found out there was this huge kerfuffle. I took down the vlog. I texted her. I got my team to give me her phone number. I texted her, and I called her. I left 2 voice messages, and then she texted me, and I texted her back, and we set up a time to talk. In the meantime, I took down the vlog, and I talked to her yesterday for quite a long time. She's a sweetheart. And I asked her, well, first I just gave her a lot of love for like having been thrown under the bus like that, and having been the recipient of feedback that had landed so wrong, and the exposure of her first and last name being associated with that. And through that conversation, you know, we talked about lots of stuff. And at the end, you know, it's kind of like, hey, how would you like me to make this right? You know, I can record another video, and that's what she wanted. That's kind of what I was thinking, and that's what she wanted too. And then we talked, and we agreed that we could put the original one down below. So if you're curious what I recorded first, you can see it down below. But she asked that all the comments that were underneath that one be removed. So it's a fresh slate of comments down there, so you won't see any of those old comments. If you want to comment to this video afresh, you can down there, but the old comments are removed. And she said I could use her first name, but not her first and last name. So in that video down there, the part where I say her first and last name has been spliced out. I think through the rest of the video, I just used her first name, which is a fairly common first name, or at least nickname. It's Bunny, which, you know, plenty of people go by the name or nickname Bunny. So she said that was fine to use her first name. So that's remaining in that video down there. And then this is my mea culpa do-over video here. So let me just read what she actually sent in the first place, what I didn't have last time and what would have left me with a whole different impression of what her concern was and how I should respond to it. So let me read this to you. Okay. Susan and team, I love your program and all that it offers. I'm still trying to stop beating myself up for regaining most of my weight. When I finally did get to goal weight once in my life in 2013 at age 40 years old. How I was eating, of course, was part of the problem. But also, having been morbidly obese for more than 10 years, I looked awful at goal weight. Worse, in my mind, than when I was heavy. My goal weight was 145 pounds due to the fact that I had a good 15 pounds or more of sagging skin on me. I'm 5'3", and I would be thrilled just to get into the normal range on the BMI chart. You recently talked about body image, but my issue is a little different. If I can never afford to have plastic surgery, how do I overcome this loathing body image that could sabotage my success? I hope the answer isn't months or years of therapy. It was hard to feel excited about my size when I did reach goal weight. I couldn't wear shorts or sleeveless shirts or dresses and forget about a swimsuit. Not that I wear any of those now, but I just couldn't feel good in my body, even at goal weight. I am missing out too much of my life. I am missing out too much of my life due to body image. Thank you for any insight and for Bright Line Eating. P.S. I'm down 45.6 pounds after 10 weeks of boot camp. I still have over 100 pounds to go, but I will do it with Bright Line Eating. So Bunny, I mean, you and I talked for a long time yesterday. So, yeah, I have such a different feeling about your question, hearing all of that context. Yeah, your question's not about loathing, self-loathing. It's really a practical question. And so here are my thoughts. First of all, I have a prediction for you, Bunny, and I didn't mention this to you yesterday. I have a prediction, which is that when you get to goal weight with Bright Line Eating, and I do believe you will, just like you believe it, I'm super confident of that. When you get to goal weight with Bright Line Eating, it will feel a little different than it did last time. And the reason is that you're doing it differently, right? You mentioned in the thing that you sent in that how you were eating was part of the problem. And when you eat the Bright Line Eating way, there's an increase in self-esteem that happens. And I talked about this in the previous vlog. That was one part that I actually got right. That when you do Bright Line Eating, there's an increase in self-esteem because there's something about writing down what you're going to eat the night before and then watching yourself eat only and exactly that kind of fills up your tank of self-esteem from the ground up. But another thing that's different about Bright Line Eating, probably, than the way you did it before, and you didn't say anything about the way you did it before, and I didn't ask you yesterday, so I have no idea what kind of plan you were doing or anything, but my guess is, just knowing all the plans that are out there, that you're more connected to people on this journey now, that you have a mastermind group and a buddy and a Facebook group, and that social connectedness really increases your self-compassion, because one of the components of self-compassion is like a feeling of shared humanity. And when you get to goal weight, you're not just going to be an island floating alone, in a right-sized body with a bunch of sagging skin. You're going to be one of many walking this journey, and you're going to have so much social support. So I predict that those elements, all of the ways that the Bright Line Eating system, the Bright Line Eating program is different than any other diet or food plan out there, are going to result in you feeling different about yourself and different about your body than you did last time. Now, I am not predicting that that's going to be a panacea and that you're going to feel, perfectly accepting about all the sagging skin you have. I'm not predicting that. I'm just predicting that it'll be a little bit better and it'll feel a little different. That's all I'm predicting. But that still leaves the question of, what do I do about all this? And you sent me pictures, which was helpful. So she sent me pictures, and like there's sagging skin, around the legs and the knees and the stomach and the arms, and so one of the things that I think is going to be really helpful as you get to goal weight and as you live at goal weight is, and you and I talked about this yesterday, Bunny, is focusing on and reminding yourself of all of the other aspects of life that are better now. That, yeah, your body's not perfect, right? And it's frustrating. And, with gratitude exercises, you can just focus on all the things in your life that are better. And with social support in particular, I think there's a way that a lot of us, when we do bright line eating, a lot of us are disappointed in aspects of our lives or ourselves. And in some ways, bright line eating can bring that to the forefront. So for you, when you lose all your excess weight, you're left with the question of the skin and the feeling of like the deformity of like, oh, this is actually worse. At least when I'm heavier, it flushes out all that skin. But there's other ways that something similar can happen to someone. So for example, someone could be in a disappointing or bad marriage in some way. And when they're eating addictively, there's something very comforting and numbing about that. I'm not saying that eating addictively works, but it does work if your goal is to be somewhat numb to the reality of your situation, right? And so if you have a marriage that feels like it just chronically lets you down, if you have a partner who won't show up for connection, for sex, for togetherness, if you have a partner who expresses contempt toward you too often, and who is mean or rude or not thoughtful or not open to spiritual growth or just whatever, if you have a partner who's fundamentally disappointing in ways that when you're open to it really wound you, then doing bright line eating can make that worse. Or at least you can be afraid that it will make it worse, because if I'm not numb anymore, I'm going to be like eyeball to eyeball with that with no anesthetization. And I think this is kind of similar. So what I mean by that, Bunny, is that you can partner up with people on the bright line eating journey who either, as they get down to goal weight, don't feel happy with their bodies, or as they do bright line eating, have to live with and come to fundamentally accept aspects of their life, aspects of their condition that feel disappointing and less than stellar. And not to say that there's not things you can do about all that, because divorces can happen and plastic surgery can happen and all of that stuff. But, the task of sort of acceptance and coming to love what is as being exactly the way it's meant to be at this moment is, I think, it's just a really powerful spiritual exercise. And it's so much better in community. It's so much better to have a posse, comrades, running partners who you're just calling, texting, voxing with all the time, so that when you have that stab, like on a summer day when you're looking to put on shorts and it's like you either have to, well, I just want to say, actually, just a little thought that I had, Bunny, is that there are clothes that will still work, like a long flowing skirt and like sort of a gypsy blouse with 3/4 sleeves, so you're not showing any of the upper arm, and that can be made out of a super, gossamer fabric so that it's still cool on a summer day. And I don't know if that's your style, so I'm just making stuff up here, so forgive me if this doesn't land, but one of my favorite sayings about this is thank God for clothes. And all of us, I think, when we get to goal weight, come face to face with the reality that we're not swimsuit models. And I know that's your situation goes beyond that, but the point is that clothes really do help. And if you have clothes that cover, being in a right-sized body and, being at goal weight and wearing clothes feels great, right? So you might find that as you tool your wardrobe to be clothes that you feel comfortable in that aren't showing a bunch of skin, you are actually really grateful to be at goal weight. And I don't know how much you explored that, like explored ways that you could tailor your wardrobe the last time you were at goal weight. I don't know if you went there with, ways that you could wear 3/4 sleeves instead of short sleeves, etc. But that might be a fun way to go too. And to invite friends on that journey, like, hey, keep an eye out for me for long flowing skirts online, or, come shopping with me for long sleeve or 3/4 sleeve shirts that are really light for summer, or that kind of thing. So you could play with that and see if you could make a game out of finding clothes that really do make you feel beautiful in your goal weight body. And so, kind of what I'm talking about is inner work, right? And you and I talked on the phone yesterday, Bunny, about how therapy for neither of us has really been that helpful, hasn't really been the solution. I mean, I've gotten a lot out of therapy over the years, but really my deepest healing has not come from therapy. And I find the kind of excavation of the past that happens in therapy to, sometimes be worth it and sometimes not. And you asked about the course Bright Line Healing and whether it was like that, whether it was digging up the past. And I said, it's really not. As a matter of fact, it's sort of the antithesis of that. It's coming home to the present. And in as much things from our past intercede and make it impossible to be comfortable in the present, we deal with them and address them. And there's tools given in Bright Line Healing to address that. But fundamentally, it's a course about coming home and becoming comfortable in your skin in the present moment, and then systematically dealing with all of the things that make that hard, all of the things that block us from being at peace and at home in our skin and feeling grounded in ourselves, in our highest selves. And I'm excited for you, Bunny, to do Bright Line Healing. I think it's going to be a course that you get a lot of value out of. And I agree with you that therapy probably isn't what is called for in your situation. It's not a digging up the past. It's a saying hello to the present. So all that said, let's talk about plastic surgery. And I have, everything I said in the video down below, in the video that I released last Wednesday, I stand by. Like, just in terms of plastic surgery not being a solution for someone's self-esteem issues. And Bunny, I just want to say I recognize that you do not have the self-esteem issues that I assumed you had when I thought that all you'd sent in were those 2 sentences. So I had a very off take on you from the truncation of your submission. But still, if someone does arrive at the present moment with self-loathing, plastic surgery is not going to fix that. You get that, I get that, we all get that. So everything I said down below, I stand by, but because I didn't think it was really relevant for you, and now I've changed my mind about that, there's a whole other side to plastic surgery that I didn't talk about in that video that I want to talk about now. And that is the ways that I have seen plastic surgery work for people, which I have, and it's worked for me. So I'm going to share here in this vlog for the first time at the public level, I think for the first time. I'm so open with stuff that I sometimes don't even know what I've shared and with whom, but I think I've never shared this before publicly. I know I've never vlogged about it. But I've had plastic surgery, and I had 2 procedures done when I got down to goal weight. And they pretty much worked for me. I say pretty much because there's little ways that each of them kind of left me feeling still a little dissatisfied. But because I wasn't trying to fix any core dissatisfaction with myself, on balance, I'm glad I had the procedures. And, any little lingering, it's not perfect is fine, because life isn't perfect and my body's not perfect and nothing's perfect. So that's easy. And when I set about to get my own procedures, I was in a great place. Like, I wasn't trying to correct anything deep or fundamental in me. I was just trying to fix the physical things that I thought it would be nice to fix. And I'll tell you the stories about that. But Bunny, I just wanted to say that when you and I talked yesterday and you were like, hey, I might actually save money, and maybe not every procedure needs to be done in the most expensive way. There's less expensive ways to get things in other countries, or, just whatever. Like, I just want to say right on. like right on. I've seen your pictures and I can see how skin getting lifted and, like there's so much that could be done. And I know that there will be scars, and I hear you that like you don't care. Like that's okay. You would rather have the skin be tightened and, lifted. And I have a friend, Sharon, who got plastic surgery after losing well over 100 pounds, maybe closer to, I don't think it was close to, I think it was 140 pounds. And her breasts sagged so much after she lost her weight that they rubbed and caused sores. And I think her stomach also had folds that sagged over and rubbed and caused sores. And her doctor, not just with one letter, but with a series of letters to her insurance company, got her procedure covered. Her procedures, her tummy tuck and her breast lift. Breast lift and breast augmentation and tummy tuck, all covered by her insurance because her doctor wrote several letters, and she was so happy with her results. Just, it made such a big difference, like as she was wearing pants, as she was wearing jeans, not to have all of that extra skin to tuck in there and it folding over and on a hot day rubbing and all that stuff. And I have another friend named Pat who got a tummy tuck that got done with a hernia fix. So he got a hernia after losing 200 pounds, 190. He had a hernia, and that hernia turned out to be his saving grace because as it got fixed, he got a tummy tuck at the same time. So it was much cheaper because it was all part of that same operation. And I believe it was covered with insurance because his doctor managed to just call it the hernia fix. So anyway, I don't know if either of those stories will result in you figuring out a way to get your insurance to cover some of what you want to get done. But even if you can't, I just want to say that I support you in saving up and trying to find ways to get some surgery done, because I think it'll feel really empowering, and I think you're worth it, and I think it'll feel great. So what I had done was more vain than what you're gonna have done. For me, what happened was when I lost all my weight, I was 28. First of all, when I lost my excess weight. And by the time I was in my early 30s, my husband David and I went through a separation. And it was a legal separation, like on the way to divorce. He wouldn't talk to me for 9 months. And we were legally separated, which in New York State meant that we'd already divided up all of our property and assets. We didn't have property, but assets and finances and everything. We'd created a legal binding document that listed who got what. We didn't really own anything, but basically. And we were living in separate dwellings. He moved out. He signed a year lease on another apartment and moved out. And we had no contact for a long time. So I don't remember how old I was, 31, 32, whatever. And I was on my own again, fully expecting to be, a few months away from divorce. We were going to wait a year, which is the requirement in our faith that you give it a year before you get divorced officially. And with the extra time that I had on my hands and sort of the energy that was released, it's sort of just not positive or negative, but just energy, I was hitting the gym. And I was hitting the gym every morning. And I was lifting weights and I was running and I was, I got down to 14% body fat. And just for comparison, I'm today 23% body fat. So I was pretty freaking fit and strong and healthy, and I felt great. I was sticking to my bright lines. I was not under eating in any way, shape, or form. I was eating way more food than I eat today, and I was feeling awesome. And I still had a thick apron of fat around my midsection. Now my body fat was so low that I was practically at like bodybuilder competition, rock hard, body fat. And I still had this thick apron of fat around my midsection. And it was around that time that I started to really reflect on my genetics and how my dad, no matter how fit he gets, has a more protruding stomach. Like we do not, my family does not come from like flat stomach, not genetically gifted in that way. And I thought, wow, this sucks. So I started looking into liposuction. And that's when I started to read as a psychologist, the psychology of plastic surgery. and how frequently someone who's overweight will go to a plastic surgeon and say, make me thin, like suck out all the fat. And they say, oh, no, like liposuction is not for that. It's someone who's in a right-sized body and has one area that genetically is where they hold their fat, and everything else is right-sized, but we're just going to get rid of that fat. And I thought that makes a lot of sense, and I realized I was there. So I looked into liposuction. As I did the consultation with the surgeon, I realized, like, I went through this other identity shift, and this was partially because I was imagining being on the dating scene again. My breasts had shrunk from a full C cup to a small A cup, like from busty. And I was always, when I was heavy, which I was my whole life, other than the hot second that I was doing crystal meth and got thin when I was 17. I was heavy my whole life, but I had nice legs, good hair. You guys have never seen my hair when it's long and curly, but it's really pretty. I had nice legs, good hair, and good boobs. And I just felt like being busty was part of my thing. Like I was kind of, I was into being busty. I liked it, being curvy. I didn't like being curvy, but I liked being busty. And I was sort of floored, like it never dawned on me that I would lose my boobs when I lost weight. And I missed them. Like being in my body didn't feel like my body without my boobs. Like I just sort of, and so I was at the surgeon and I was like, tell me about breast augmentation too. Like I'd like my boobs back. And he told me about it and stuff. And I went home to think about it. And I was like, then I went through this sort of turmoil of, really, am I going to do that? Am I going to get a boob job? And liposuction, like the liposuction I could sort of wrap my head around, I guess, just because it felt like just this genetic unfairness. Like, yeah, if I'm going to be this fit, if I'm going to spend this much focus on my food and my exercise and stuff, like, yeah, like that fat's got to go. But the boob job sort of felt like, it felt out of character for me because I'm a hippie at heart. Like, really, I'm a hippie at heart. Hippies don't get their breasts done. Like I'm so not an LA Valley girl, just in terms of my values and yeah. And as I was thinking about doing this, I was thinking, I wouldn't want to tell anyone about this because like, I'm not a person who would do that. And then I started looking at that. What does that mean? I'm not a person who would do that. Like the highest self in me felt like she wanted it. Like in the sense that I wanted my boobs back. Like I did. I believed that I would feel more congruent in my body with that procedure done. Like to be busty again. Felt like me. I didn't want to I could have done the work to let go of the identity of being busty. I didn't want to. I wanted to be busty again if given the option. But I couldn't wrap my head around doing something that I would be embarrassed to tell people. And then I did some work on that. Like, why would you be embarrassed to tell people? If this is really true for you, why would you be embarrassed to tell somebody about it? And then I thought about all the ways that we change our appearance in sanctioned ways in our society, like dyeing our hair, whitening our teeth. Or then I started to think deeply about braces, because I had braces when I was a kid. And I started to think about how it's not only sanctioned, but it's almost expected. Like if a parent has a kid with really crooked teeth, it's tantamount to neglect to not get them braces. Like you need to get them braces. And I thought, well, that's painful and expensive and invasive. And assuming there's no bite correction necessary, it's just cosmetic. It's purely cosmetic. And it was torture, like braces were torture. And I thought, well, why is that like not just accepted, but necessary? And what I'm thinking about doing is like frowned upon. And I started thinking about all of that. And my friend at the time has really like, she has gray hair early, and she was talking about how her friends were hazing her for not coloring it. And I thought, she's getting hazed for not changing her appearance. I just thought the whole thing was really interesting when I dove into it in my head. And as always, what I came back down to is, to thine own self be true. Like, you want to do it, do it. And you'll figure out a way to tell people about it or not later. But if this feels true to you, and I sat in my meditation, because I was a 30-minute-a-day meditator even then, I sat in my meditation and it was like, all green light, go. Like, go, do it. So I did. I got a boob job and I got liposuction. Now, fast forward 10 years. They overshot the mark on the boobs. They're a little bigger than I thought they would be. And by the way, you can't go in and say, I want to be a C cup again. So I'm a little bigger than that, and I wish I weren't, but it's all right. And the liposuction tummy has like uneven skin a little bit. It's like mottled skin. It's sort of dimpled and bumpy a little bit. Whereas if I hadn't had that done, I had a big belly, but at least it was smooth. And there's swatches on my breasts that have diminished sensitivity, like numbness still. And I remember when I was signing the waiver, of course, it said bleeding, infection, death, numbness. You know, of course, you're signing away. You understand that all these could be side effects. And of course they do that. And it never dawned on me that, you know, like I consider I'm not risk averse, so it never occurred to me like, oh, numbness, I think, was one of those things. But actually, that kind of bums me out. Like, I'd rather have that feeling and that sensitivity back. So those are the small ways that, like, I'm not super satisfied. If I could roll back the clock, would I do those 2 procedures again? Probably. Like, I'm pretty happy with my body, and it feels like my body. I think I was right that my inner identity is being busty and like this feels like me now. And now I'm telling the world that I had plastic surgery, and okay, you know, I think that some people will be horrified, and I think that some people will judge me, and I think that some people will not care, and some people will celebrate me, and like everything in between, and who cares? Because from the beginning I realized like the only way for me to navigate this bright line eating experience with the kind of exposure that I'm setting myself up for having is to just be me and just tell the truth and just let the chips fall where they may. My dad told me when I was a kid, Susan, tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may. So you can think whatever you want to think about my procedures. I did them. I'm fine with them. And there will be people, I'm sure, who will listen to this video and, you know, learn something from it and or relate or be given food for thought or whatever. And Bunny, I just want to say for you, I predict great things in your future. I predict surgeries that you feel really happy about. That's what I predict. And I predict that as you get down to goal weight with bright line eating, it won't be as bad as you're fearing, because it'll be different this time. It is different this time, right? In all the ways that bright line eating is different than whatever it was that you did last time. So, thus concludes the first ever redo of the weekly vlog. You can watch the old one down below if you're curious, or not. And thanks for watching. I love you. I'll see you in just a couple days.